What is the best attacking move for every single Pokemon type? The answer is not actually as obvious as you might expect. Every type will have their go-to attacks, commonly used in competitive. Fire types will have Flamethrower, for example. Ghost types will have Shadow Ball or Poltergeist. But when you factor in powerful signature moves, whether they be on legendary Pokemon or random low-tier Pokemon that just have really broken attacks exclusive to them, this question gets more complicated. And I quickly found that every single type in the game has multiple contenders for this title, when you factor in all of these powerful signature moves. So let's take a look at every type in the game, all the possible candidates for their best attack, and try to decide on one for every single type. And please remember that the moment I reach 100,000 subscribers, which is coming very soon, I will personally send to the Pokemon Muck $1 million. It is imperative that you subscribe to the channel as quickly as possible. Thank you. Let's start off with the water type. Unsurprisingly, water is a fantastic type and therefore has many powerful attacking moves to its name that have existed over the years. And the most obvious example you're probably thinking of is Scald, the 80 power water type attack with a 30% chance to burn. It's a simple move, but this has been one of the most dominant moves in competitive Pokemon ever since its introduction, at least in competitive singles. Combining a solidly powerful attack with the ability to fish for burns, incredibly safe. And when you consider that the only type immune to burn is fire and they're weak to Scald, this move is incredibly effective at spreading burn. And it is one of the strongest attacks in Pokemon history. But I think we can do better. What about Steam Eruption, the signature move of Volcanion? This has the same effect as Scald, the 30% burn chance, but it has 110 base power and a 95 accuracy. So what if Scald hit like a truck? It almost hits as hard as Hydro Pump, and it's spreading burn? This is an incredible move that I'm sure many Pokemon would wish to have if they could. It's kind of close between this and Scald though. You'd think this is strictly better than Scald, but Steam Eruption only has 8 PP on it, and Scald has much higher PP, making it more spammable over the course of a game. So some defensive Pokemon would prefer Scald, but offensive Pokemon would love Steam Eruption. I would probably say Steam Eruption is the better move overall. You could also consider some options here like Flip Turn, a simple water type pivoting attack, which is very strong. I don't know if that's at the upper end though, but it's worth shouting out. And then Hydro Steam is also a contender, I think. This move has an 80 base power, but during Sunny Day, instead of this move getting nerfed, usually in Sun, water type moves deal less damage. Hydro Steam deals more damage and completely ignores the usual water type debuff that Sun applies. So Hydro Steam can ignore one of the greatest counters to water type attacks in the game and just deal significant damage. And Walking Wake is an incredible Pokemon on Sun teams for this reason. But there is one clear choice for a water type attack at the very tip top, I think. And that is obviously Fishious Rend, the signature move of Dracovish. This move was so powerful that it led to Dracovish getting banned from competitive singles. Fishious Rend has an 85 base power, but the power doubles if you move before the target, which is easy to achieve if you just pivot in against something slow, you have a Choice Scarf equipped or whatever. So this just has such an absurd base power that I think if anything else half decent could get this, imagine Gyarados with this, or Ogerpon Wellspring or something. Any good physical water type attacker with this move would just be incredibly overwhelming. It's too much power to wield for one fellow, and even the base power is not too bad. It's not like that's a particular detriment if you don't hit first, because most water type stab options used by physical threats are around this power, like Liquidation and Waterfall. So this is my clear choice for best water type attack in the game. Fishious Rend, just through sheer numbers alone, is gonna take the cake here. Up next, the fire type. And the first thing that comes to mind when I think of a very powerful fire type attack is the move V-Create, a move that very few Pokemon get, one of them being Victini. Rayquaza also gets it. V-Create has a 180 base power. It's so large, it's insane. This is doing unbelievable damage. With a 95 accuracy, very accurate attack. But it has the drawback of lowering your stats. You get defense, special defense, and speed lowered by 1. But crucially, you don't get a drop to an attacking stat like, Superpower or Draco Meteor, for example. So this hits harder than those moves in terms of base power. And you can often get another attack in there if you're up against something slow switching in, which often will happen. A defensive wall comes in, and even though you're -1 speed, you can get another hard-hitting V-Create through. So the drawback is bad for sure, especially the speed drop. but at least you're not dropping attack. So V-Create is incredibly powerful, and if fire-type physical attackers had more access to this, I'm sure they would just throw it on. It's incredibly good, especially on Choice Band Pokemon, Choice Scarf Pokemon. Definitely up there. Another contender would be Sacred Fire, a move previously exclusive to Ho-Oh, but now Entei gets it as well. It's a 100 power, 95 accurate fire-type attack. That alone is already really good. But on top of that, it also has a 50% chance to inflict burn. That's a really high chance. Sacred Fire will pretty reliably burn enemies, and it makes this safe even on defensive switch-ins, like water or dragon types coming in, are still gonna risk getting burned, which is very crippling in many cases. It also thaws you out when you click it, which is another added bonus if you happen to be frozen. So Ho-Oh is less worried about getting frozen. Very, very strong move, very scarce option that is also incredibly good. The only real drawback to this is the low PP. It can be stalled by pressure or just naturally stalled, as 8 is not that much over the course of a longer game. But absolutely one of the best fire type attacks. But to be honest, I think I would actually give the title of best fire type attack in the game to this move right here, Torch Song, a recent addition in Gen 9 and the signature move of Skeledirge. This move is truly excellent. Torch Song is an 80 power, 100% accurate special attack with a 100% chance to raise your special attack by 1. Having a ramping effect, a stat boosting effect on a move that is already pretty solid power-wise is incredibly good. And you can imagine this would go crazy imagine this on Volcarona, Chi-Yu, anything really. Any fire-type special attacker would probably use this if they could. Not to mention, it is a sound-based move, so it also bypasses Substitute, and that's incredibly valuable too. That's like a little hidden benefit to this move, and all sound-based moves. So yeah, honestly, I think that Torch Song is the best fire-type attack in the game. The ramping is just so good. Up next is the Grass type, and this type doesn't have too many egregiously powerful signature moves on things. There are some, though, that are very good. And I think one worth shouting out is another recent addition. The signature move of Meowscarada, Flower Trick. This is a 70 power grass type attack that always results in a critical hit, and it's a physical attack. It's also perfectly accurate for what that's worth. So because this always crits, it effectively has 105 power since you're doing 1.5x damage from critting. And critical hits bypass defensive boosts as well. That's probably the best thing about them. On top of the extra damage is that a Dondozo cursing up or anything using Iron Defense, maybe a Garganical with Iron Defense, is going to just get completely shut down by this high power move that ignores all boosts. If grass types could choose absolutely any physical attack to use for a stab option, I think this would be at the top of the list for most of them. The guaranteed crit, the high power, it's not only just a really solid damage output from this attack, it's really useful to be able to have that trick up your sleeve against boost sweepers. It's very powerful. Another potential option is Matcha Gotcha, the signature move of Sinistcha. That's an 80 power grass type special attack with multiple secondary effects. It has a 20% burn chance and 50% healing on top of that. So this is kind of like a superior version of Giga Drain that also just has a burn chance on top. For how all-in-one this move is, providing healing, status, and stab damage all in one, you have to give this move a lot of credit. You can even call this the best grass type attack in the game, just for how useful and widely applicable it is. And it's one of the reasons Sinistcha is a viable choice, is because it has such a good attack. And it's close between Matcha Gotcha and this one, but I think I would lean more towards this option right here. Seed Flare, the signature move of Shaman, introduced back in Gen 4. This has a 120 power, which is very high. Only has 85 accuracy, that's the biggest drawback, is the low accuracy, but the secondary effect is insane. 40% chance to lower the target's special defense by 2 stages. Not only is that a really high proc chance, higher even than Scald Burn chance, but dropping a special defense stat by 2 is really powerful, and you can imagine if any good grass type special attack has got this, this would be the attack of choice, I'm sure of it. Imagine Chlorophyll Venusaur with this or something. The breaking power of this is insane. And if Shaman is ever used in any context, it's likely because Seed Flare is such a good option. I would say this is the best grass type attack in the game, but it's pretty close between this and Matcha Gotcha, and defensive Pokemon would probably prefer that. Up next is Bug, and there are a couple attacks you can shout out here. Leech Life was a significant new addition for Bug types that made them much better. Once this got buffed, it's 80 power with 50% recovery on top. Very solid attack that is often used. This isn't that exciting though, a lot of moves have similar effects. We can do better than Leech Life. What about Lunge? Lunge has 80 power as well, but a 100% attack drop chance. That's actually extremely good. I think Lunge is up there. Lunge is very powerful. 100% attack lowering chance on a move with such high base power is a lot in a single slot. It's good for moves to be able to do a bunch of things at once. But I think we can do even better. First Impression is a bug type attack that is absolutely excellent. First Impression is a 90 power bug type attack with priority on it, but it only works the first turn you are out. Similar to Fake Out. You can only use this on the first turn you have been sent in, and then it will not work. But for such a high power attack to have priority on it in any context is incredible, and this is a great revenge KO tool. And having Bug Stab on this, it's just one of the reasons to run a bug type attacker on your team is for this move and a hard hitting version of this move. It's why Low Kicks is having such a rise in Gen 9 OU at the moment, because it has Stab First Impression with a Choice Band boost, which revenge KOs so many things. It's such a good option. But I think, folks, there's a clear, obvious number one here, and it is U-Turn. U-Turn is one of the best moves in Pokemon history, and it's an extremely simple move. It's just a 70 power attack that switches you out after dealing damage. It's a pivoting move. But pivoting is such a powerful concept. Pivoting allows you to basically make free progress and then choose whatever option you want to respond to the enemy. If they defensively switch out, you can go to a perfect response and keep momentum going. Plus, you made a bit of progress with the damage itself. If they stay in, same thing, you're gaining information about what they've done. Because, of course, switching is the first thing that happens in a turn. Switching is at the start of the turn order, and then moves take place. So, by selecting U-Turn and the move itself switching you out, you can check whether they have chosen to switch or not, and what they've switched into. And gaining information in a game where, both players are moving simultaneously, and the whole point of the game is trying to figure out what your opponent is doing and punishing it. U-Turn is a move that not only gives you info, and info is incredibly valuable, but it makes a bit of progress at the same time. And Low Kicks right here with a Choice Band on it, perfect example of a Pokemon taking full advantage of U-Turn, dealing damage while pivoting, and you just always get the desirable outcome you want every time because you're gaining info. You know where they went, you go to something that beats that, and you're chipping them down in the process. It's an incredibly good move, and I think it's the clear best bug type attack in the game. Electric type has quite a lot of powerful attacks to its name over the years. The most classic example that was prominent in the early generations is Thunder. Thunder is a high power move. It used to be 120. It was since nerfed to 110, but it only has 70 accuracy. However, in the Rain, if Rain is active, this move is perfectly accurate. And this is one of the reasons to run Rain teams, is to abuse Thunder. On top of just hitting like a truck, Thunder has a 30% paralysis chance, and that is enormous. In the Rain, this move is incredible. And if you look at a format like Gen 3 Ubers, Thunder is perhaps the best attack in that format, where Kyogre can create permanent rain, and Thunder is punishing even defensive switch-ins like Latios and Snorlax and whatever else. Just spreading paralysis with Thunder while dealing all the damage in the world is such a powerful concept. And while this may have previously been the best electric type move in the game, in the modern day, I think because it's contingent on Rain being up, and otherwise it's very inaccurate, I think we can do better. I think there are better attacks these days. Volt Switch is certainly worth acknowledging. Volt Switch is, much like U-Turn, a pivoting move. You deal a 70 power electric type special attack, and then you switch out. It's a little bit worse than U-Turn because there are immunities to it. Volt Switch can be stopped, it's not completely safe to click, as ground types are immune, and certain Pokemon with Volt Absorb or Lightning Rod or other electric immune abilities can stop it. So it's not as good of a pivoting move, but it's still a pivoting move, and it's a pivoting move on a type that is arguably better offensively in some cases, as Volt Switch can absolutely farm teams if the enemy's ground type or other electric immunities have been eliminated. It's a very safe way to rack up damage and keep responding to everything your opponent is doing with perfect accuracy. So definitely worth shouting out Volt Switch. But there are stronger moves, folks. There are. Zeraora has the signature move Plasma Fists, which is an amazing attack. It has a 100 power and 100 accuracy. That's a fantastic start. That alone is extremely good, especially for an electric type physical attack, which is a very scarce thing to have in this game. And on top of that, it has a fantastic secondary effect. When you land this attack, all normal type moves from your opponent transform into electric type moves. And Zeraora here has Volt Absorb, so basically, if you attack them, you become immune to all of what were previously normal type moves, because now they are electric and you just use Volt Absorb. Even if this was on a different electric type attacker, you would gain a resistance to those moves, because assuming you're an electric type, that would have some real benefit. Same deal if you're a ground type with this move. You would gain immunity because you're immune to electric. very, very strong attack with a powerful secondary effect attached. This is up there for sure. You can also give a shout out to Nuzzle, one of the best utility attacks in the game. It's a simple 20 power electric type attack with a 100% paralysis chance. Having a paralysis effect like this attached to an attack instead of a move such as Thunder Wave is often better because it means that you can't be taunted and you can paralyze things like Magic Bounce opponents that would otherwise reflect back the Thunder Wave. So Nuzzle is pretty good. It also has the benefit of breaking focus sashes. Most Pokemon that can get this will use it for some form of utility. It's not always a good fit, but a scarce option and always a useful one to have. Great utility attack. The Pokemon Archaludon, a recent addition to Gen 9, got one of the strongest electric type moves we have ever seen, and that is Electro Shot. It has 130 power to special attack with 100 accuracy, and it raises your special attack by 1 upon being used. The catch is that it's a charge move, similar to Solar Beam. The first turn you click it, you spend charging, and then the second turn it gets used. But in the rain, if rain is active, you bypass this charge requirement entirely. Similar to Solar Beam, once again, which bypasses charge in the sun. But Electro Shot is like power crept Solar Beam. I mean, Solar Beam's already worth using. It's 120 power with no extra effect. This is 130 with a special attack raise on top. This is enough to make Rain incredibly metagame warping, just off the back of this move existing, and that's exactly what happened. Archaludon was abusing this to a great extent on Rain teams, and Rain teams were the center of the meta as a result of this very move. So I would definitely say this is a serious contender, and yet I think that the best electric type attack in the game, you gotta give it to Bolt Beak, a move used by Octozolt and Dracozolt. Bolt Beak has the same effect Vicious Rend does, 85 power, and it doubles if you move first. So just through sheer numbers, I think this is the best one. It's already pretty solid, as stated before. It's already a decent power for a generic physical stat move, but if this ever breached containment and was on anything decent, it would be incredibly dominant and powerful, especially if there's complementary coverage on its side. Imagine Bolt Beak plus Vicious Rend together. I don't want to imagine that. We can be glad we don't live in that world. But yeah, this is a simple one, and I think this is the best electric type attack in the game. Up next is Fairy, and despite what you might think about Fairy types, I mean, they're perhaps the most powerful type in the game. They don't actually have that many broken signature moves to their name, to be honest. Wheezing Galar has the move Strange Steam, that's signature, but it's not really that much different to good old Moonblast. Many fairy types get the move Draining Kiss, which has 50 power and a 75% recovery effect. Really good attack on certain Pokemon, especially boost sweepers that want good healing and fairy coverage on the same attack. But you can't call this that broken, can you? It's only 50 power. It requires ramping to really get where it's going. I think, simply, the best fairy type attack in the game is the exact one you would expect. Moonblast. Most good fairy types in the game get this, and we're all used to seeing it, but I often forget just how good this move is. It really is incredible. It's got a 95 power, 100% accuracy, that's already solid enough, but also has a 30% chance to lower special attack by 1, which is a really, really good secondary effect. Most of these go-to stab moves, like Flamethrower, Thunderbolt, etc., only have 10% secondary effect chances, but Moonblast gets to have a 30% chance on a move with pretty above average base power for such an effect, in my opinion. You can maybe acknowledge Floor Cannon, the Draco Meteor equivalent of the fairy type, but even then I think that Moonblast is just way more solid. There's no special attack drop associated with Moonblast, it has 24 PP, and the power is just really consistent and good. The secondary effect comes up all the time, it can save your life. I think it's Moonblast, pretty simply. Up next is the Fighting type, a type with myriad excellent attacks to its name. It's sort of their thing. The first one you're probably thinking of is Close Combat, an amazing attack. An attack that redefined the entire fighting type when it came out back in Gen 4. Close Combat has a massive 120 power and 100 accuracy, with the drawback of lowering defense and special defense by 1, which is really not that much of a drawback, especially for a fast, frail offensive threat that is aiming to just hit things hard quickly. This is one of the most solid, aggressive physical attacks in the game. I don't know if it's the best fighting type attack though, I think that there are some better. Not every Pokemon is going to want the defense and special defense drop. Some Pokemon are defensive, and maybe they use something like Drain Punch or Brick Break instead, and you could hardly say those are towards the top. Those are pretty simple attacks. But what else have we got going on in the fighting type department. Sacred Sword is a very solid attack that many Pokemon are thankful to have access to if they do. It's a 90 power fighting type attack with the effect of ignoring stat stage changes on the enemy. Pretty useful, bypassing defensive boosts on various things. Not the most earth-shattering effect in the world though, and most Pokemon are probably going to prefer either Close Combat or Drain Punch if they're offensive or defensive, but still a pretty good attack. Secret Sword is another very good fighting type attack, a special attack this time, 85 power, and it has a similar effect to Psyshock, dealing damage based on defense rather than special defense. And this is incredibly good because not only is it above average in power for a fighting type special attack, it crucially gives you an ability to hit special walls, and many common special walls, like Blissey and Chansey, are weak to fighting, and ones that aren't are perhaps neutral to it at least. Having a special attack that covers your bases in terms of dealing damage on the physical side is incredibly good, and it's one of the reasons Keldeo is such a threat in Generation 5. Able to just one-shot, Tyranitar, Blissey, the occasional Clefable, and other such special walls that would otherwise deal with it. You also have Collision Course, the signature move of Koraidon. 100 power, 100 accuracy physical move that also deals 1.33x more damage if the hit is super effective, repeating of course. Very good move, and it's kind of like Close Combat but without the drawback of the defense drop, hitting really hard without any downside and even some upside if the hit is super effective, achieving more damage than Close Combat could. At the same time though, I think that actually Close Combat is still more desirable on a Pokemon like Koraidon just because it is so fast and aggressive. It prefers the consistently high up power against more things, or perhaps low kick, because low kick is just a better fit in Ubers where everything's so high weight. Low kick attacks based on weight. But Collision Course is still very good, and I'm sure if more Pokemon could get it, they would use it. Imagine Great Tusk with this or something, or any decent bulky fighting type would go crazy with this. To be honest, Iron Hands would probably get some real value out of this. So this is up there for sure, even if Koraidon specifically doesn't always use it. But I actually think the best fighting type attack in the game is the signature move of Hisuian Decidueye, who isn't that great of a Pokemon, but it has an insane attack. Triple Arrows. It only has 90 power, but look at all of these secondary effects on this attack. It's perfectly accurate. It has enhanced crit chance, 50% chance to lower defense by 1, and 30% flinch on top of that. That's a lot in a single move. This is an incredible wall-breaking tool with 3 different ways it can destroy defensive Pokemon, lowering their defense, critting through them, or just flinching them, preventing their crucial heals. And with 3 chances of 3 different effects, it's likely you're going to hit one of them. So Triple Arrows is crazy, and we're lucky that only Hisuian Decidueye gets this, because this would be a terrible move to deal with if anything better got it. Imagine, once again, if you will, Great Tusk, clicking Triple Arrows and flinching your whole team to death. I've imagined it, and I wish I didn't. I wish I didn't just imagine that, because that is a nightmarish scenario. 90 power is also really high for moves with powerful secondary effects on them. You're matching the power of Sacred Sword, you're beating out Secret Sword as well, and you're doing way more. You're simply doing a lot with a little here. Flying types are next, and they have some pretty good moves to their name, don't they? Hurricane is probably the one that comes to mind immediately. Hurricane is another rain synergy attack with 110 power with 70 accuracy and a 30% confuse chance. Very good secondary effect. And of course in the rain it becomes perfectly accurate. And this is yet another one of the reasons to run rain teams. Hurricane Tornadus back in Gen 5 on perma-rain teams is a monster. You just throw sharp beak on that thing and very little can come in safe, especially if you've eliminated the enemy's weather setter. Tornadus Therian abuses this all the time. It's an incredible bulky pivot on rain teams post the Gen 6 nerf to perma-weather. This was everywhere on Gen 7 rain teams, and it really held them together like a glue, to be honest, with Stab Hurricane not only being incredibly powerful, but also the utility provided by the regen U-turn pivot and knockoff and everything. Even without rain synergy, Hurricane is just used on powerful Pokemon like Tornadus Therian outside of rain, and Zapdos recently in Gen 9, just because flying types tend to be bulky. They have chances to go for these inaccurate moves, and if they land, there's very high reward. Flying is a fantastic offensive type generally. So yeah, very good move. There's also Bleak Wind Storm that you could shout out, another newly introduced move. Bleak Wind Storm has 100 power, 80 accuracy with a 30% chance to lower speed by 1. This also can't miss in the rain, and this is perhaps an even better effect sometimes than the Confusion chance. Confusion can have incredibly high reward, disrupting the enemy, but this is a more consistently useful drop chance perhaps, as Defensive Switch may come in, perhaps an electric type faster than Tornadus Therian, and then you've lowered their speed. You can now get a faster U-turn off, and they are way less threatening than they previously were. I think in singles, Hurricane is probably still a bit better, even though Bleak Windstorm is a bit more accurate outside of rain, so that's worth noting. Acrobatics is another flying type attack that is definitely worth mentioning. It starts at 55 power with 100 accuracy, which is very weak, but power doubles if the user has no held item, and that's a pretty easy criteria to meet. Acrobatics can be used sometimes on Pokemon that just aren't holding an item. You just don't give them an item to get the acrobatics boost going. And that's a 110 power flying type attack, which is very strong. This can also be used with items that get consumed, which activates the power doubling effect too. Berry items, Focus Sash, the Terrain Seeds, etc. And unburdened Pokemon like Holucha and Sneasler can get great use out of acrobatics as just a really strong flying type physical move. It's a simple move, it's just 110 power after consuming an item, but that's really strong, and it's often a popular choice in competitive. And another very powerful flying type attack, absolutely worth mentioning here, Dragon Ascent, signature move of Rayquaza. This is basically flying type close combat. It has all the same traits, but it's flying type. 120 power, 100 accuracy, and that same drawback of lowering defense and special defense. This somehow feels even better than close combat though, because of how good flying is as just a neutral attacking type. This hits like a truck, and it's a perfect fit on Rayquaza, who can boost up with Dragon Dance and just absolutely tear through things, with Dragon Ascent and the complementary Earthquake as well. This is absolutely up there as one of the best flying type attacks in the game, and physical flying types absolutely wish they had this for sure. But I think I'd give the title of best flying type attack in the game to Yveltal's signature move, Oblivion Wing. And this move doesn't look that powerful at a glance, only 80 power, with 100 accuracy, that's nothing special. But it's the fact that this recovers 75% of the damage dealt that is the crazy part. That is a lot of recovery. Remember, this is the same recovery amount that Draining Kiss has, and that's already a desirable option that many Pokemon use. This much recovery on a move with 80 power, which is an acceptable amount of power to deal pretty respectable damage, is just incredible. It's a great attacking type, and it's a 2-in-1 deal. You have healing and a solid stab move all in one. And I definitely think that if flying type special attackers could choose any stab move in the game to use, this would be the one you want. This one right here, more so than Hurricane or Bleak Windstorm or Air Slash. This would be the winner. So consistent, so much healing, and so solid on the power side as well. Up next is the Ghost type. And this type has a lot of broken moves to talk about here. Seriously. One of them is a move you don't see too often because it's on a pretty banned Pokemon, but it's the signature move of Decidueye, Spirit Shackle. It's a simple one. 80 power Ghost type attack that has a trapping effect associated with it. It prevents you from switching out. This is a move that you could see being really broken if it was on something that could get good value out of it. It's kind of crazy to combine a trapping effect with a solid stab ghost move. Fortunately, we don't live in a world where we have to worry about that, but this is a high potential move. Not even on a ghost type, just on anything that can take advantage of a trapped enemy. Often you had to use Mean Look back in the day to trap things, and that's a move slot spent just on trapping. Even that was worth it. But the fact that this could double as your stab option on like a curse set or something, or a Dragon Dance set, and you can trap certain things and use them to farm boosts. This could be very, very broken on the right Pokemon. But amazingly, there are a lot more broken ghost type moves we can talk about here. Lunala has the signature move Moongeist Beam, a strong contender for best ghost type attack in the game. It has 100 power, 100% accuracy. It's a special attack that ignores the abilities of other Pokemon. You can bypass effects like Sturdy, Unaware, various powerful abilities really. The applications of this are plenty, and just the power alone, even not considering that secondary effect, is incredible. I mean, Ghost is such a good attacking type. Ghost type special attackers are getting huge rewards off of simple Shadow Ball, like Dragapult Choice Specs with Shadow Ball. Imagine if those Pokemon had this. They're ignoring abilities and hitting like a truck. It's an unbelievable move. It's an incredible move. Here's an idea. What if I simply dealt even more damage? Calyrex Shadow Rider has the move Astral Barrage, which has 120 power and 100 accuracy. This is very straightforwardly one of the best ghost type moves in the game, just through the sheer damage output of it. If Shadow Ball is enough to function as a special attacker, this is enough to build an empire or something. I don't know. This is absurd damage for a ghost type special move with no drawback. But there's more, amazingly. I think that Marshadow's signature move, Spectral Thief, is even better than Moongeist Beam and Astral Barrage. This move right here is a 90 power, physical ghost type attack. 100% accuracy. And it steals the target's boosts before dealing damage. And the words before dealing damage is very crucial here. Stealing a target's boosts while attacking them is a crazy concept. Imagine you're up against a Dragon Dance Mega Salamence or something with +3/+3. You use Spectral Thief, steal all of their attack, and now you're the strongest thing on the planet. With all of their boosts. And then you easily one-shot them, and now you've got the strongest sweeper in the world on your hands. It's kind of like how Ditto is an anti-setup sweeper Pokemon by becoming a copy of the enemy and all their boosts, using that against them. Same with Heart Swap, another move that does such a thing, but this is even better because it's attached to an incredibly good ghost-type physical attack with 90 power. Attaching such a strong effect to a really solid move is just crazy. And that would be the best option for a ghost-type attack in the game, if not for one more. That is, I think, the clear answer to this question. And that is a new move in Gen 9, Last Respects. This is a move that starts out at a modest 50 base power, but it receives an additional 50 power for each party member that has fainted. So this can achieve pretty massive base power very quickly. I mean, if only 2 party members have fainted, and that's not that much, you're already out-damaging Astral Barrage with a physical move. You're out-damaging Poltergeist and other such options. If your whole party has fainted, this achieves an unbelievable power of 300 base. And that is going to tear through even resistances. Even if something is taking half damage from that, that's still, you could view that as a 150 power attack. With 300 power getting halved. This is dealing more damage than Vicious Rend. This is dealing more damage than anything, than as many Z moves were doing. You can also ramp this up further by using Revival Blessing, because Revival Blessing allows you to resurrect allies, then more things can faint, and then the power can get astronomically high. Ghost has some of the best attacks in the entire franchise to its name. Multiple examples of such attacks, but Last Respects absolutely takes the throne. Up next is the Dark type, one of the most popular offensive types in the modern games, and a classic example of a prolific Dark-type attack is of course Pursuit, introduced back in Gen 2. Pursuit is a simple move, it has 40 power to begin with, but if a foe is switching out, you will hit them while they're switching out with doubled power. So Pursuit is a trapping move. The opponent can't escape the damage of it, and if they try to, they will be hit even harder while they're switching out. Pursuit can be used to trap Ghost types, Psychic types, or just Pokemon vulnerable to powerful Dark-type neutral hits. Tyranitar was a prime abuser of this for a long time, and this is a move that had a significant metagame impact. Trapping specific targets with Pursuit enables certain team archetypes and the elimination of specific targets. Pursuit is actually removed from the games now. It's no longer available. Ever since Gen 8, Pursuit cannot be used, but this is a move that had a significant impact when it was around. For many, many years it did. Definitely one of the most competitively impactful of all Dark-type attacks. The Pokemon Urshifu has a very good Dark-type attack to its name, one that many Pokemon wish they had. Wicked Blow is an 80 base power physical attack that always results in a critical hit, and you'll notice this is a bit better than Power Trip mentioned before in terms of base power. This move ends up having an effect of 120 power, and also the ability to bypass defensive boosts, and that is a lot. That's a really strong attack right there. And it's part of the reason this Pokemon was so overwhelming in competitive, was because this move hits like a truck and you can't even use defensive boosts to try and withstand it. Power Trip is a move that I think is worth shouting out here. It's not a commonly used attack, specific Pokemon are able to abuse it, but it has very high potential. Power Trip starts at 20 base power and gets plus 20 power for each stat boost that you have. So Pokemon with many different sources of stat boosting, perhaps even Terrain Seeds on top to squeeze in even more base power and boosts to get more out of Power Trip, can achieve a really incredible damage output, and this can ramp up to really crazy levels and overwhelm even resistances. It is more conditional than some of these other attacks that are just more straightforwardly and immediately strong, but Power Trip on the right Pokemon could easily be game breaking. You can imagine such a thing. The most common Dark-type attack seen since Gen 6 is also among the best, and that is Knockoff. It's a simple attack seen all the time, but it's just so damn good. Knockoff starts at 65 base power, and it deals 1.5x damage. if the foe is holding an item, so all the time basically. It also removes their item, which is incredibly strong. This is the definition of an all-in-one attack. It's powerful, dark, physical stab that deals considerable damage. And it gets rid of crucial items from enemies. Items are everything in competitive Pokemon. Boots, shield Pokemon from dangerous hazards, leftovers offer chip healing, offensive items like Choice Band offer damage. Getting rid of items is an incredibly safe way to guarantee progress and just get a little bit of a leg up. And to attach that effect to a move that also deals this much damage is crazy. To be honest, Knockoff would still be on the list here in its pre-nerf state, just as a utility attack. Knockoff back in the early days, in even Gen 5 and 4, was still a really strong move that doesn't do any damage, but it's just an attack that gets rid of an item, and that alone was really high value. Just one of the safest ways to just get a little advantage against your opponent and win over time. But buffing Knockoff to this extent was a crazy decision. It's among the strongest moves in the entire game, and it's on a lot of Pokemon as well. But I think the best Dark-type attack in the game is the signature move of Hisui and Samurott. This single move has made Samurott Hisui one of the strongest new Pokemon in Generation 9 OU, and that is Ceaseless Edge, a 65 power Dark-type attack that sets a layer of spikes on the field. It does have 90 accuracy, which is a drawback. Not perfectly accurate, and it can be annoying when this misses, but the fact that you can deal Dark-type damage and set spikes at the same time is frankly insane. It's crazy. I mean, spikes on their own are one of the best moves in Pokemon. Just setting a layer of spikes is already amazing. That's an entry hazard that's going to deal significant damage to your opponent over the course of a game. It's going to apply pressure on switch-ins. Spikes are so powerful, and attaching spikes to an attack is just two powerful concepts in one: dealing damage and setting hazards at the same time. I think it's a clear choice. Only Hisui and Samurott gets this attack, but this attack would be everywhere if it was more widely distributed. This is so strong. Up next is the Dragon type, a type once famous for its incredibly powerful attacks, like Draco Meteor and Outrage back in Gen 4. These days though, dragons aren't quite as offensively insane as they used to be, with fairy types existing to be immune to the incoming dragon hits, and also similarly powerful moves being introduced for other types, with high base powers and similar drawbacks too. So what would the best dragon type attack in the game be? There are a few contenders. A recent superstar of dragon type attacks has been Scale Shot. Scale Shot is a multi-hit move. It has a base power of 25, but it hits between 2 to 5 times, so it has potentially a very good damage output. Scale Shot will also subtract your defense by 1 stage, which is bad, but it will raise your speed by 1 stage, which is well worth the defense drop on a Dragon Dance or Swords Dance sweeper even. This can allow you to ramp up and snowball just by attacking the enemy. It's a speed boost on top of a pretty good attack. It's a very strong idea, and this became even more powerful in Gen 9, where Loaded Dice exists, an item that makes multi-hit moves more consistent. With Loaded Dice, multi-hit moves will always hit at least 4 times, so Scale Shot here will pretty consistently deal high damage, hitting 4 to 5 times every single time, and allowing you to ramp up speed. Multi-hit moves also had the added benefit of bypassing substitutes, because you're hitting multiple times, a substitute won't keep the enemy safe. And you go through mechanics like Sturdy and Focus Sash, Multi-Scale, etc. Mechanics designed around taking a single hit that get punished by multiple hits. Very, very strong attack for sure, and commonly abused by the best dragon types in the game. Koraidon loves using this too. Clanging Scales is the signature move of Como-O, and it's a great attack. 110 power dragon type special attack with 100 accuracy, and a pretty minor drawback all things considered. It only lowers your defense by 1, and while you're not quite on the same level of power as similar moves like Close Combat, this is a pretty manageable drawback, and a much more desirable option compared to Draco Meteor, which lowers your special attack by 2 stages and is also a little bit more inaccurate. This high power accurate attack is really incredible, and this would probably be the special attack of choice if you could get absolutely any special attack you want. Baxcalibur also has an incredible dragon type signature move, and that is Glaive Rush. This has 120 power and 100 accuracy, with the drawback that on your next turn after using this you will take double damage from an incoming hit. It's a pretty bad drawback, but compare this to, honestly, Close Combat where you permanently have your stats lowered. I think this is a much more manageable drawback, and honestly, you're not really getting hit from enemies if you're Dragon Danced up, so it's easy to bypass this in a similar way that Close Combat doesn't feel like much of a drawback, neither does this. Glaive Rush is way better than comparable option Outrage, which has the same power but the much worse drawback of being locked into the same move for multiple turns and then getting confused after the lock-in period. And Outrage has been a great option in the past, just as a hard-hitting attack that ignorantly gets spammed. But Glaive Rush is much better. You're not locked in, you're flexible. The drawback is way more manageable, and the power is well worth it. But I think the best dragon type attack in the game is this right here, a move that possibly you haven't even heard of, because the only Pokemon that gets it is Zygarde, and it's not particularly good at using it very well, because of its low special attack. But Zygarde and the other Zygarde forms get this move, Core Enforcer. 100 power, 100% accurate dragon type special attack with 16 PP. That alone is pretty damn good on its own, but it has the secondary effect of nullifying the enemy's ability if they move first. It's kind of a weird effect to understand, but basically if the enemy moves before you and then you hit them with Core Enforcer, they will temporarily have whatever their ability is disabled. But attaching a disruptive effect like that to a move with such high power is really incredible. And this is commonly used in Hackmons just for its powerful ability nullification effect alone. I'm sure if more Pokemon got this, they would love to use it. One application of it could be to disable Poison Heal on Gliscor or Magic Bounce to be able to set rocks. Abilities are everything. This would bypass Unaware too. And there's a distinction to be made between this and something like Moongeist Beam, because this actually disables the effect of the ability, rather than ignoring the ability from the POV of an attack. So Moongeist Beam is able to hit through Unaware, for example, because Unaware is an ability affecting Moongeist Beam itself. But Core Enforcer will actually just disable the ability from functioning at all. So it applies to things like Poison Heal, where Moongeist Beam wouldn't disable Poison Heal. This will. So I think this is the best dragon type attack in the game. There's not much practical use of it in official means, but in a vacuum, I think this is it. Ground is up next, and I feel like I should mention Earthquake just to do so. It's a simple move, but it's one of the most solid moves in the game. That it's always a blessing if a physical threat gets access to this. It's always nice coverage, it hits very hard for what it is, and it's just solid. Nothing flashy about Earthquake. 100 power, 100% accurate, and that's it. It also doesn't make physical contact. That's an important point too. So Rocky Helmet, Rough Skin, and other such effects will not be dealing residual damage to you if you use Earthquake. I don't think it's the best ground type attack in the game, but it would be weird not to at least mention it here. I think Bone Meringue deserves to be shouted out as well. Signature move of Marowak. A 50 power ground type attack that hits twice. It's not particularly fancy either, much like Earthquake, and in many cases it's worse because it's less accurate. But this is used in Hackmons sometimes as the ground option of choice, because it's able to bypass Focus Sashes, breakthrough substitutes, etc., and the multi-hit effect has some value. Definitely not the best in the game though, but sometimes, for certain Pokemon, it's their best choice for a ground type move in Hackmons. So that's kind of interesting, isn't it? The Zygarde forms also get the incredible ground type attack 1000 Waves, which has 90 power and traps your opponent in with you. Similar effect to Spirit Shackle, but it's actually a bit better on the power side with 90 instead of 80. I actually think you'd rather have this instead of Earthquake on most Pokemon, because it's not that much of a power decrease. You can still use this as a straightforward ground stab option or coverage option, but the switching effect, the trapping effect, on top of that is just incredible value all in one. I'm sure plenty of Pokemon could abuse this for setup potential. Imagine Great Tusk with this. It could spam Bulk Up and Rapid Spin against the right thing, and then 1000 Waves is also its ground stab, so that's a 2-in-1 deal. This is a trapping move without the usual commitment associated with such a mechanic, because it's also just a good attack, so you're not really sacrificing that much to trap the enemy. Very, very powerful idea, and would easily be broken on the right thing. But I still think the best ground type attack in the game would go to Zygarde's other signature move, 1000 Arrows. This is another 90 power ground type attack, but it has the added benefit of being able to hit flying Pokemon. That includes levitating Pokemon and Pokemon with flying type. Usually, ground type attacks are ineffective against flying type or levitating Pokemon. They have no effect. And that's the main real drawback to ground type attacks, is that there's such a common immunity to them, and they're so easily stopped by that. Otherwise, ground would be an unbelievable offensive type, but 1000 Arrows literally patches up the only downside to being a ground type attack. And turns out ground is pretty broken without its big weakness keeping it down. So yeah, in a very straightforward sense, this is the best ground type attack in the game. pretty firmly in my opinion. Up next we've got the Ice type, one of the best offensive types you can get, hitting so many things super effectively and complementing other types very well. One of the best options for a physical Ice type attack is this one right here, Triple Axle. Triple Axle starts out at 20 power and it hits 3 times, but each hit is stronger. The second hit deals 40 power and the third hit is 60 power, so it ends up adding up to quite a lot of damage. Plus it has the added benefit of multi-hitting, bypassing multi-scale, sturdy, focus sash, substitute, etc. Multi-hitting has its serious benefits. There's a bit of a drawback to this though, as it's a 90% accurate attack, and each individual hit has a chance to miss, which can make it a bit inconsistent. Some other physical Ice type options are sometimes more desirable for that reason, like Icicle Crash, which also doesn't make physical contact and has a 30% flinch chance on it, or Ice Spinner, which is 80 power, 100% accurate, and removes terrain effects from the field. So I suppose all those attacks are kind of in the same category as a go-to Ice type physical option. Triple Axle, probably the best of them though, and the most commonly seen on those who get it. Hisuian Avalog has a noteworthy signature Ice type attack, Mountain Gale. This move has 100 power, 85 accuracy, and a 30% flinch chance. Pretty solid move. Many Pokemon would probably choose to use this if they could. A little bit less accurate than Icicle Crash, but not by much. Not a particularly exciting move though, compared to some other moves mentioned in this video. Nothing absolutely earth-shatteringly broken or anything, but one of the more solid Ice type attacks in existence. Calyrex Ice Rider has the excellent signature Ice type attack Glacial Lance, which just has 120 power, 100 accuracy, and no secondary effect. A bit of a counterpart to the Astral Barrage of Calyrex Shadow Rider, and similarly great. It's not very flashy, but Ice is such a good offensive type that just having a consistent attack with high power is incredible. It's one of the best things about Calyrex Ice Rider as a Pokemon, is that it has this. So this is absolutely up there. But I would actually give the title of best Ice type attack in the game to this move right here, and it might be a weird looking choice. I've chosen Freeze Dry, a move with only 70 base power, but an incredibly powerful secondary effect, which is that it is super effective against water instead of being resisted by water. I think that subtracting one of your resistances on a type that is already so incredible offensively is just amazing. Water types are often foils to Ice types, they resist them, but this turns the type chart on its head a little, not only bypassing the resistance but dealing double super effective damage against water types. Anything with Freeze Dry, any Ice type special attacker probably uses it, and for good reason. And I think just in a similar vein to 1000 Arrows, bypassing a Pokemon's weaknesses, erasing one of their drawbacks from the type chart, is just an incredibly powerful idea. Even though this only has 70 power, the options this opens up for Ice types is incredible, turning an already incredible offensive type into an even better one. Up next is the Normal type, and I think I would give a bit of respect to the simple Body Slam. Body Slam is an 85 power Normal type physical attack with a 30% paralysis chance on it. It's nothing too insane, but similarly to Scald, the combination of a powerful stab move and a strong and high impact secondary effect all in one is just really good, and this move is pretty commonly seen in competitive throughout the years. Maybe not in the modern day, as Normal isn't the most desirable offensive type in the world anymore, and Normal types themselves don't feel very good in the modern times, but this move has a strong history. Another one of the best Normal type moves in the game historically is Extreme Speed. An incredibly powerful priority move, with much higher power than most other priority moves. This has 80 base power, and you're competing with moves like Shadow Sneak, Mach Punch, etc. that only have 40 power. This is double that. Anything that gets this is loving life as a result. It's a fantastic option to get. It even makes Linoone somewhat of a threat back in Gen 3, just because it has this, and Rayquaza always makes great use of such an option. Deoxys Attack, Arcanine. This is one of the most desirable Normal type attacks to have. It's incredible. Even to this day, it's still really good, with Dragonite abusing it on the Terra Normal set in OU still to this day. Boom Burst is definitely worth shouting out. A simple 140 power special attack with no downside. 100% accurate as well. Really strong and above average for a special attack. Most special attacks with these numbers in terms of base power have a drawback, a stat lowering effect, or some other negative reason. for using it, but not Boom Burst. You just get a lot of damage. Maybe the drawback is just that it's a normal type attack, and that's not the best attacking type in the world, but the power certainly makes this a really consistent option. Even non-normal type Pokemon will choose to use this just for the sheer neutral damage against so many things, which says a lot about how good this attack is. Also, because it's a sound move, it does bypass Substitute, which has its uses as well. That's also very good. Rapid Spin would have gotten a shout out here even before it got buffed, but after the buff, it became a truly elite attack. Rapid Spin back in the day had a much lower power, and it just had the effect of removing hazards from the field. But even just that is an incredibly important utility option to shield your team from all of those incoming hits from spikes and stealth rock, etc. It's an invaluable utility move, and it's one of the only effects in the game that can remove hazards. It also gets rid of binding effects and the effects of Leech Seed, which are some other niche ways to take advantage of. But ever since Gen 8, Rapid Spin got buffed, got a pretty significant power bump up to 50 power, so it can actually deal a bit of damage. You know, it's hitting harder than Tackle. How impressive. But on top of that, this also raises your speed by 1 stage. So you can use this to ramp up your speed and sweep with it. Great Tusk commonly uses this to do exactly that, bulk up and Rapid Spin. And it's dealing pretty good damage, especially because you're boosting your attack too. And it's hazard removal, all in one. You're getting rid of stealth rocks, you're boosting your speed, turning you into a threat, and you're dealing some damage that is not too bad considering how much utility and value that is providing. The Rapid Spin is absolutely up there. But there's one move that I think is a bit better, folks. One solitary move, and that is Population Bomb, the signature move of Mousehold. This move has a 20 base power and 90 accuracy, but this move hits 10 times. The catch is that each of the individual hits has a miss chance, so if any of the hits do miss, the move stops completely. But the upside of this move is crazy, and with a wide lens equipped, Mousehold, whose signature move this is, can hit like an absolute truck. With Technician Boost on top, this ends up coming out to about 300 base power total. This is an insane move, and it might be a reason to use normal types again if more Pokemon got it, to be honest. It's already one of the reasons to use Mousehold, who is an otherwise horrible, average all-around normal type Pokemon. But Population Bomb represents such a damage output and the insane multi-hit as well that it makes it worth considering on OU teams, which is, I think, a real testament to how good the attack is, that it makes this average and simple family of mice who are not looking like they're very fit for combat into a force to be reckoned with. And it just shows the power and strength of family values in today's society, first and foremost. Up next is the Poison type. And the Poison type doesn't have that many insane moves to its name, but there are some worth shouting out that are very good. I think a new addition worthy of mention here is Mortal Spin, a new signature move on the Pokemon Glimmora, which is a fantastic new Poison type utility attack. Mortal Spin is very similar to Rapid Spin. It's a 30 power attack that gets rid of hazards, binding effects, and Leech Seed. And it also applies poison. Similarly to Rapid Spin, which now has 2 effects in one, this offers hazard removal and a form of residual damage. It's almost comparable to Nuzzle, which also has 30 power and applies a status ailment. It's not toxic poison you're applying, but you're definitely happy to be able to apply poison and get rid of hazards at the same time. And this is very effective at 1v1ing enemy hazard setters, because now they're on a clock. They can't just keep reapplying hazards now, because they're going to be poisoned over time. So Mortal Spin is a pretty fantastic new hazard removal option that also crucially hits different things to Rapid Spin. You can hit ghost types with this, unlike Rapid Spin. So usual spin blockers won't work against this. You do have new adversaries though, as steel types are immune to this and will prevent you from being able to remove hazards. But still a fantastic new utility attack, worthy of being brought up here. The new Pokemon Pecharunt also has a pretty incredible signature move to its name, and that is Malignant Chain. This move is crazy. 100 power, 100% accuracy, and a 50% chance to inflict not just regular poison, but toxic poison to the target. The move speaks for itself, it's just so much in one. This is hitting harder than comparable options like Sludge Bomb and Sludge Wave, and those only apply regular poison. This has a much higher chance of 50% to apply toxic poison. But this is just incredible. So much damage. An unbelievable secondary effect. It's kind of like Sacred Fire, but it's even better actually because it's perfectly accurate. Not perfectly accurate, 100% accurate. Sacred Fire is better in some sense though because there's less immune to burn. Malignant Chain is at least easily switched in to by poison types and steel types who are both immune to being poisoned But, I mean, that doesn't change how excellent this is as a poison type attack compared to other options. So many Pokemon wish they could use this. This is an incredible attack. But there's one that I think stands tall as the best poison type attack in the game, and that is Dire Claw, the signature attack of Sneasler. Dire Claw has an 80 power and a 50% chance to inflict one of 3 status ailments, those being sleep, regular poison, or paralysis. And that's a stupid effect. I'm kind of amazed this even exists. There is a chance upon being hit by Dire Claw that you are just put to sleep and can't do anything. And it's not even that bad of a chance. There is a 50% chance, which is very high, to get some sort of very impactful status ailment against the enemy. The worst is regular poison, but both sleep and paralysis are very impactful and can cripple an enemy beyond repair. The potential upside of this attack is huge. The power isn't even that bad, and yeah, it's just a crazy attack that should never have been invented. They should have kept this one to themselves. I fear they've made a big mistake here. Up next is the Psychic type, and Psychic types actually don't have that many super broken attacks, especially compared to some of these other types. One example worth noting is probably Photon Geyser, signature move of Necrozma in all its forms. Photon Geyser has 100 power, 100 accuracy, and it can be either physical or special depending on your build. Depending on which offensive stat is higher, the type will change from physical to special or vice versa. And on top of that, it ignores abilities. Very similar to Moongeist Beam and also Sunsteel Strike with that effect. Pretty cool stuff. Commonly used in Hackmons as an ability ignoring, hard-hitting psychic coverage option or even stab option. It's a very good attack, and it's definitely one of the better ones in the game. Stored Power is another attack deserving of a shout out. It has the same effect as Power Trip mentioned earlier, starts at 20 power, and gains 20 power for every boost you have. But this time it's a Psychic type special attack. This move is really good, and I feel like it's more easily abused by a lot of Psychic types who tend to have Calm Mind and Agility as really straightforward boosting options that work well with Stored Power. Espathra here is probably the best abuser of it in history since it has Speed Boost to rack up speed boosts every single turn, and Calm Mind to also enhance its offensive and defensive stats on top of that. It's a very good attack that is pretty often abused by various sweepers, and it can have very high potential. Mewtwo also has a very good Psychic type attack to its name, as it should, and that is Psy Strike. Yet another 100 power, 100% accurate attack. It's a special attack that deals damage based on the enemy's defense stat rather than special defense. Very similar to Secret Sword and Psy Shock. And those moves are already very good on their own, but this has above average power for such an effect of 100. But this is absolutely the attacking option of choice for Stab on Mewtwo, and it's a very good option, dealing massive damage to enemies like Blissey, even Clodsire, who is a popular new special wall sometimes seen up in Ubers 2 that you can just destroy with powerful super effective damage that hits on the defensive side, which is their worst stat. A very, very good attack. But I actually think the best Psychic type attack in the game, in a vacuum at least, is Esper Wing, signature move of Hisuian Braviary. It's on a pretty bad Pokemon, so you've probably never seen this do much work, but this is an incredible attack. It's only 80 power, but it has the secondary effect of raising your speed by 1 stage with a 100% chance to do so. That's incredibly good. And on top of that, it has a high crit rate. Any special sweeper that could get their hands on this would probably consider using it, just as a way to ramp up speed while having a really solid psychic coverage option as well. And the high crit rate is just icing on the cake. Even Mewtwo would probably use this. It would be really good actually, wouldn't it? I think I'd give it to Esper Wing. Very good attack. Up next is the Rock type, a very good offensive type, with some pretty nice attacks available for it. I think Meteor Beam is worth shouting out. Meteor Beam is a Rock type special attack, with 90 accuracy and a charge effect. It raises your special attack on the first turn and then hits on the second turn. But you can use a Power Herb to turn this into a really hard-hitting instant attack that also raises your special attack, and various Rock type special threats can take really good advantage of this as a one-time use, hard-hitting special threat and boosting option. Glamora, probably the perfect example of such a thing. Very good user of Meteor Beam in Gen 9. You'll probably notice that this is power crept by something like Electro Shot though, which also works in the rain and even has a higher base power. But there's something to this being a Rock type attack. Rock has no immunities to worry about, nothing can be immune to Rock, and it's just a fantastic offensive type that hits a lot of important stuff for really big damage. You can get a lot of one-shots from Meteor Beam. I think it's worth mentioning. The all-new Paradox future form of Terrakion got a really good new Rock type physical attack. to its name in Gen 9, and that is Mighty Cleave. This move is amazing. Has a 95 power and 100 accuracy, and that alone already kind of beats out Stone Edge as the comparable option, which has 100 power and 80 accuracy. Very small power decrease for the consistency of that accuracy. And also this bypasses protection. The move Protect will not work against this. You will be able to attack through it. And that's really good. Protect is a common option to pass turns, rack up chip heal, rack up chip damage against an enemy. This is a great rock type attack, and perhaps the best straight up rock type physical move in the entire game, just as a primarily an attacking option. Every rock type threat wishes it had this, for sure. This is way better than Stone Edge or Rock Slide. But I think the best rock type attack in the game would have to be Stone Axe. There's no other option. Stone Axe is the signature move of Cleavor, a new Pokemon available in Gen 9. That is a rock type attack with 65 power, 90 accuracy that sets Stealth Rock on the enemy field. Very similar to Ceaseless Edge. And it's just in the same vein as Ceaseless Edge. It's such an incredibly powerful concept to be able to set Stealth Rock, an incredibly impactful hazard that has a permanent effect on the enemy while also attacking at the same time. Not only because you're doing two things at once, but this bypasses Taunt, Magic Bounce, etc. Other anti-hazard mechanics. You can just click Stone Axe, and so many Pokemon would use this if they could. Only Cleavor can, but this would probably be better than just Stealth Rock as a move if you could use this. It is a little inaccurate, but just attaching it to an attack is so good. Support Pokemon would use this, physical threats would use this, it would be everywhere if more Pokemon got it, for certain. Definitely the best rock type attack. And the final type in the game here is the Steel type that we're talking about. A type that's really improved over time and become a really scary offensive type, actually, with some pretty damn strong attacks to its name. Sunsteel Strike is an attack that can only be used by Solgaleo and Necrozma Duskmane, and it's an incredible one. 100 power, 100 accuracy, ignores abilities. A counterpart to both Photon Geyser and Moongeist Beam with that same effect, but it's a Steel-type physical attack. Sure, it's easy to understand why, for all the same reasons as those other ones are. Ignoring abilities is really good, and the move itself is just incredibly consistent damage-wise and accuracy-wise. Melmetal gets the attack Double Iron Bash, which is a dastardly attack. I don't like this one. 60 power, 100% accurate, and hits twice. That's good on its own. Double hit 60 power move is kind of above average for a double hit move. Plus it's more accurate than most of them. And each of those hits, both of them, has a 30% chance to flinch. So this is 2 Iron Heads, basically. That's crazy. Not only great damage output, the benefit of multi-hit bypassing Focus Sash and everything, but also 2 chances to flinch is kind of crazy. Very, very powerful move. One of the reasons to use Melmetal in Gen 8. And perhaps this one should not have been made. Maybe they made a mistake here. Goldengo has an excellent new signature move to its name. Make It Rain, a Steel-type special attack with 120 power, 100 accuracy, and a pretty minuscule drawback, all things considered. Only lowering your special attack by 1 stage. Compare that to Draco Meteor, Floor Cannon, and other comparable moves similar to this, and they lower by 2. Only lowering by 1 special attack is really strong on a move with such high power and consistency in its accuracy. Definitely one of the best Steel-type attacks in the game. But my choice for the best Steel-type attack in the game would actually be this one right here. Signature move of Delmise, Anchor Shot. This is an 80 power Steel-type attack that has the same trapping effect that other moves mentioned here also have, like Thousand Waves and Spirit Shackle, which was really good in those instances too. Combining a physical attack with a trapping effect is just really strong for many reasons. But this is actually the best of all of them for the simple reason that there are no immunities to it. Spirit Shackle can't affect normal types. It won't be able to trap them because the move won't take effect against them. They're immune. Thousand Waves, same deal against flying types or levitating Pokemon. They can't be trapped by Thousand Waves because it won't hit them. But Anchor Shot hits all types. This is the best trapping move in the whole game. It's very common in Hackmons, and it can actually be one of the best moves in that format where you can use any move in the entire world. Anchor Shot is up there as one of the best because if you trap the right thing in with you, it's just gone. You can sit there and store their PP or just use them as setup fodder. I mean, trapping with an attack associated with it, powerful concept, and this is the best move at doing that. And it's a pretty decent Steel-type attack on top of that. So yeah, I would say Anchor Shot is the best Steel-type attack in the game. And we can be glad that more things don't get this, because otherwise you'd be getting Anchor Shotted on many different things and not having much fun. And there you have it, folks. Wow, this video was much longer than I anticipated. I don't know why I thought this would be a quick one. I'm looking at every type in the game, Jimothy. We're analyzing various powerful attacks from every type possible. That's going to take quite a while. But regardless, thank you all for watching. Are there any powerful attacks I missed here? Do you agree or disagree with my choices for best? Let me know down below in the comments, and thank you for watching as always.